Hello. I was very nervous, wondering what I would do if no one came, but I'm very grateful that everyone in the venue has gathered. Thank you. It's time. My name is Nishimura from Line Yahoo, and Onishi will be presenting on why AI doesn't reduce workload as much as expected, the limits of human in the loop and AI ready business design. Thank you. Today, taking the task of product patrol for Yahoo Auctions and Yahoo Flea Market as an example, we will discuss efficiency improvements using AI. I will be discussing the challenges in business structure that became apparent beyond the legal aspects, and what we are currently doing to overcome them. Today, I'd really like you to take away that simply adding AI to existing operations is not enough to truly transform them with AI. Now, I'd like to briefly introduce myself. My name is Tomohiro Nishimura. I am typically assigned to the security department, specifically focusing on content fraud prevention. Within that, I am the product owner for a no-code AutoML tool called AutoLearning. Okay then, from you too. I'm Kanako Onishi, and I will be taking over for the latter half of the presentation. I am usually responsible for AI and mechanization in the CS Patrol and monitoring areas, which I will be discussing today. Thank you for your time. We have been advancing the introduction of AI, such as HiMat, for patrol operations since around 2020. Today's presentation will cover the initiatives we have built up over several years through a trial and error at the front lines, working together as tool creators and users like Miss Onishi and her team. Today's session is divided into two parts, the first half and the second half. In the first half, I will talk about how AI implementation has changed our operations. We will look at what improvements were made by introducing AI into product patrols and where the limitations were. In the latter half, Ms. Onishi will discuss how we are redesigning our operations with AI in mind. To overcome the limitations we saw in the first half, we will be introducing how we are reviewing our operations, rules, and the roles of people. Now, I would like to move on to the main topic. First, I would like to briefly explain what Product Patrol is, which I will be discussing today. Product Patrol is one of several initiatives to maintain public order on Yahoo Auctions and Yahoo Flea Market. Specifically, people check 24/7 whether products violating guidelines are being exhibited. There are two main aspects to this patrol work. First, identifying suspicious items from the several million listings that appear each day. And there are these two steps, checking the found items against the guidelines and making a judgment. Both of these are quite difficult tasks. For example, from the perspective of finding them, the number is certainly very large, but the difficulty lies in keeping up with the daily changes in violation trends, methods, and phrasing. And from the perspective of judging, for these products that have over 300 criteria, where exactly there is the difficulty of discerning whether or not they are regular. We will now explain in three stages how we have incorporated AI to address these two different challenges. First, let's talk about what patrolling was like before the introduction of AI. First, in terms of detection, we identify suspicious items by using several thousand queries with conditions such as keywords. The products found, it's like the image in the screenshot on the right, but I couldn't show the actual product this time, so I brought it as an image. It was something where we would make judgments while checking the product information and the contents of the standard document on the review tool. In terms of finding things, what kind of queries should be set to find what we're looking for, and also, for the items found by those queries, the criteria and perspectives for conducting reviews were heavily dependent on the experience of each individual in charge. In particular, detection using this query sometimes results in false positives, where something is caught even though it's not problematic, simply because a keyword is triggered. Also, there are a considerable number of queries, so the maintenance burden was very high, which was a challenge for the team. So first, we started by trying to do something about this detection part, the finding part. This is about AI filtering. Until then, we were doing things with queries, but we started by training a classification model using past patrol result data to replace them with AI. However, by replacing it with this AI, we are now able to detect not just keyword matches, but also the content and context of products, which has significantly improved our capabilities. The detection accuracy has improved. Also, we were able to reduce unnecessary complications. With this, the detection part has significantly improved. What we also did, in addition to this, we also provide support at the entry point of the decision-making process. We are now zooming in on the top 3 reasons for violations in similar past products, and as you can see, we present them to the person in charge, indicating there might be a risk from this perspective. It's an image that we'd like you to use as a starting point during the actual review process. This improved the initial stage a bit, but whether these 3 perspectives truly apply, or which specific parts are problematic, still depends on the judgments of the people in charge. Past experiences and we were heavily dependent on them. So we took another step, and what we started by delving into judgment support was this AI pre-screening function. In the era of filters, we only focused on suspicious items. Previously, we were only able to identify items, but with this pre-screening, we can now specify which part of the product violates which standard. What we're doing is very simple. We're inserting an LLM into the AI filter section I just mentioned. This means that AI performs a preliminary check before humans review it. So, as shown in the figure on the right, the results of the pre-screening are returned. We also include comments on how AI reviewed this product and links to related standards. Also, surprisingly, humans tend to overlook. We also highlight keywords, for example, areas that should be carefully reviewed. The sample we are showing this time is a fictitious one, which is a uniform of a shipping company. As you can see when you read this, at Yahoo Auctions and Yahoo Flea Market, the uniforms of shipping companies are. There's a risk of people misrepresenting their identity and entering buildings simply by wearing it. So this item is prohibited from being listed according to the guidelines. And that information is written in the comments, and the patrol staff can review it before proceeding with the examination. With the introduction of this pre-screening, the people in charge now have specific points of view that they need to confirm. As a result, we were able to lower the bar in terms of judgment in areas that were heavily dependent on the experience of the person in charge. So let's look at how patrol has changed. Our review efficiency has dramatically improved. The review efficiency at this time is as follows. This refers to the percentage of items that actually led to deletion or other measures after being reviewed by a person, like a batting average. When the query itself is considered as quantity 1, with the introduction of the AI filter, it's 26 times. With the AI pre-screening, we were able to achieve an efficiency improvement of 50 times. That's what I think. If efficiency increases by 50 times, we expect the work time to be reduced by 150 pounds. The reality is not that simple. When we opened the lid, we found that it didn't change much. This is the result. So why? Even though the efficiency of the work increased to this extent, did the time required for it not decrease? I would like to touch on that one last point before concluding the first half. This relates to what I explained earlier. Issues were discovered in both the finding and judging stages. First, regarding the detection side, with the improvement in AI accuracy, the amount of human review required has dramatically decreased. However, on the other hand, it's even more difficult. AI has become able to find things that are difficult to judge, and those are now being passed on to people. Therefore, while the number of items to review decreased, the proportion of items that took a long time to judge increased, which is one of the factors. Another point on the judgment side, as you saw earlier, the AI pre-screening comments are very powerful and effective. It significantly aids in making judgments. However, I believe you all feel the same way. Just because AI says something doesn't mean we can act on it directly. So in this case, there are things that cannot be directly deleted. In particular, the decision to remove a patrol must be made very carefully. So we started making more thorough decisions, including AI comments. With the introduction of AI, we have reduced the amount of content that humans need to review and are now able to provide specific decision-making criteria. As a result, people are now able to make more careful judgments on more difficult and riskier products. However, if we continue to assume that people will ultimately check all AI results, there will be a limit to how much we can reduce work hours. This was the limit of human in the loop that we encountered in improving operational efficiency. From here, I would like Ms. Onishi to talk about how we are trying to overcome this challenge. Ms. Onishi, please. Now, Ms. Onishi will speak. Now, from Mr. Nishimura, we have been making various efforts to improve operational efficiency by extensively utilizing AI. As a result, the volume of work itself did not decrease. Why is this the case? How we can reduce it? We thought hard about it and realized that a significant change was needed. That is, previously, we are now introducing AI into our existing patrol and monitoring operations. We have been continuously considering how to improve efficiency. However, what was actually truly necessary was to, that is not the case. How to? By changing to an AI native workflow, AI can make judgments independently. We realized that we needed to fundamentally transform our workflow so that human in the loop would no longer be necessary for final confirmation. Therefore, we temporarily discarded the existing patrol operations. We decided to reconstruct the patrol operations to be the best possible in a world with AI. AI, you see, when we considered what AI native patrolling would entail, yes, as shown in the figure on the left, and areas that only humans can handle. An area where humans and AI work together. We have been trying to increase the areas where AI can work together as much as possible. What we aim for next is, the question is rather how to create areas where AI alone can make judgments. One important point is, this does not mean that we are entrusting everything to AI and going fully automated. We need to clarify which areas do not require human review. As a result, to help us move into more difficult areas, or areas where we're sure people are involved, we're looking for areas that AI alone can handle. And we thought about expanding it. When we want to increase the areas where AI alone can make judgments, what's important, of course, is the locus of responsibility. Therefore, through these initiatives, we have also carefully considered how and where to place this responsibility. Therefore, to make this possible, of course, AI can also make mistakes. So, we built a system that allows for recovery even if the AI makes a mistake, ensuring safety and security. On top of that, we created a situation where we can confidently say, so, it's okay for the AI to make decisions. We decided to build this in a way that allows people to focus on tasks that only humans can do and on areas that require human oversight. So, with this policy that AI takes responsibility for decisions and AI makes the final decision, when we try to do various things, challenges arise. The very first challenge. What is this? This is it. It's about getting approval from stakeholders. Since this monitoring and patrol work will fundamentally change the nature of the work itself, the impact will be enormous. This will be a rather bold decision, so we need to ensure that stakeholders understand why we must aim for this. Therefore, we have two main points for that. We took the code. One is, this ties in a bit with the first half. We clearly visualize the point where there are limitations when humans intervene. I mentioned that the efficiency increased 50-fold with the introduction of SNS AI, but this is not because we tried a little. Rather, we made numerous attempts and various adjustments. We pushed it to the point where we can truly say that was the limit. And then, I believe they still exist. It is absolutely necessary. Humans are more capable than AI and the quality of the work is high. Many people felt that way. Whoa. Therefore, there's a concern that entrusting AI with patrol duties might degrade the quality. I also needed to answer on paper. Regarding this as well, it is very challenging, but we heavily check a large amount of human work results. When AI does the work. When people do the work. Whether humans truly offer higher quality. We conducted a verification and showed that this was definitely not the case. This patrol duty is extremely difficult. Also, the terms and conditions, there are so many. I thought it was a task that humans really couldn't do. As mentioned, after all, even humans. It did not mean that the quality was higher than AI. And one more thing, we convinced them that AI could perform high-quality patrols, but there was one more thing we had to explain. Then, why not just AIify the current operations as they are? We also had to answer the question of whether it was acceptable as is. Regarding this, why is this current task, not AI, ready? There are a vast number of operational instructions intended for humans, and we thoroughly examined them in detail to identify and document every aspect that is not suitable for AI and why. Let me elaborate on that a little. The reason we couldn't AIify the current operations as they were is, in a word, because the current operations are designed for humans. This means that it was often difficult for AI. For example, the operational instruction manual, if this is read by a human, even if it's somewhat ambiguous or not fully written out, they can compensate for it with their past experience. Also, if there are operational rules not written in the instructions, a human can check with a colleague next to them or a supervisor. However, if you try to have AI make a judgment, it doesn't work that way. This means that we must clearly articulate what criteria define a violation and to what extent. in a way that AI can effectively process. This is not at all to say that the on-site staff are at fault or anything like that. It's just that humans were able to compensate for it and that it had been working until now. Since the objectives are completely different, which is how to make AI native from now on, the idea is to make tasks easier for AI. There were three major challenges hidden in the work instructions for humans, so I will introduce them to you. One is ambiguous phrasing, or that there's no priority in the rules. Also, in terms of how it's written, there's categories unrelated to the listed item, for example. For example, what does unrelated mean? This area is a problem where definitions are not yet established. Next, it is a standard based on implicit values and local rules. In reality, this was actually the biggest challenge. The rules are evolving uniquely on site. Therefore, although not explicitly documented, there were actually many cases where conditions like actually this condition is also necessary applied. Finally, the judgment process is extremely complex. This, of course, also increases the difficulty of the task, and if we were to replace this with AI as is, the AI would also have to follow a very complex procedure. So in order to improve its quality, we believe that the process must be made as simple as possible. We address these issues hidden in human-oriented tasks one by one and transform the tasks themselves into an AI-ready state. It was a very tedious task, but I believe this was actually the most challenging part and the biggest hurdle we had to overcome. Now, I would like to briefly summarize what AI-ready business design entails. When we say AI-ready, people tend to focus on using generative AI, but I believe this is not just about refining prompts. AI must be able to make autonomous decisions and, moreover, be sustainable in its operation. We have 5 points that we always strive to uphold. The purpose and goals are clear. The judgment criteria have been clearly documented. The necessary information is structured. Exceptions and boundaries are defined. And the workflow is simple. To meet this, we redesigned our operations and prepared prompts accordingly. From here, I would like to touch a little on prompts. This is an instruction for the AI. The prompt in this context is not merely a command, but can be considered the very essence of a business judgment. Therefore, this is a very important task. First, the challenge was this enormous set of regulations, and for people, the business instructions, we don't give them all of that enormous amount of information, but it was a situation where we had to make choices and properly provide what was necessary. Therefore, we first divided the prompt into two main parts. One is the part that is automatically generated from publicly available terms and conditions. And one more thing, the sentences that describe the information associated with it. Although people tend to write a lot here, it's really about what is truly necessary. We picked up from the instruction manual for humans, and then even changed the border and wrote it down, thus creating a large framework first. Next, we were able to make it quite a bit more compact than the current work volume, but we still need to operate this. So that's what it means. If there are any changes to the terms, it's natural that the prompts will need to be changed. However, this There is no doubt that the volume is enormous, so it was important to consider how to improve maintainability. Also, because it's a very large prompt, it was impossible for one person to conduct all the verifications. Therefore, even if multiple people divide the work, in the end, it needs to function as a single prompt with consistency. To solve that problem, we have this supplementary part. We decided to manage these rules separately, rules common to all categories, and rules specific to certain categories or products. As for the common parts, if multiple people make changes, there will be no consistency, and the same things will be written repeatedly, making it impossible to operate. For common cases, we assigned a small number of fixed administrators and entrusted them with revisions and other tasks to maintain consistency. By creating this state, we were ultimately able to combine all the parts and establish a consistent prompt. In this way, by significantly changing our work processes, we constructed an AI-ready work process. In addition, we also sorted out what would happen to people after this AI utilization progressed. Previously, people would carry out tasks and monitor them. The worldview was that AI would support humans. From now on, under this new workflow, performs the monitoring. Well, people are responsible for operating and improving that AI and for thinking about how to best manage the broader guidelines themselves. We also organized the idea that people would move on to tasks that create greater value, which only people can do. What we wanted to convey in this session was, when we talk about AI utilization, the focus tends to be on introducing AI. However, to fully leverage the power of AI, it is necessary to redesign the operations themselves. Up to now, we have used AI to detect rule violations and to identify where violations occur, using AI in various support capacities. However, as long as the final confirmation remains with a human, it's unavoidable. We were unable to truly streamline our operations and reduce workloads. Within this context, it was a very significant decision. We create an area where AI can make judgments solely on its own. To that end, we have been pushing for a redesign of the operations themselves. Now, in the state of AI ready business design, we are about to create a prompt and get started. The essence of AI utilization is not just about implementing AI. AI transforms the operations themselves into a form that can yield their intrinsic value. We believe this is the true application of AI. With this, we would like to conclude our presentation. Thank you very much.